Okay, welcome to chapter 7 of Hot Topics. Just two more topics to go here.
That's right, and we're really excited. This is your last chapter of ALEC, so if you made it this far, you're almost done with the course. Just keep at it a little bit longer.
That's it. This first one, using the quadratic formula, we know it's just a formula, but we do need to emphasize it's a formula that you're not only going to use in intermediate, you're going to also use it in college algebra and then probably any course after that.
Right, and one of the problems is that students often have trouble simplifying after they use the quadratic formula. So really that's what this hot topic is about, figuring out how to simplify your final answer once you use the quadratic formula.
Okay, well let's go ahead and get started. We know that x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You do have to know that for your test or your final exam, so just get that note card ready and start memorizing. Now, obviously, this is in a's, b's, and c's, and this isn't. Well, if you remember the standard form of a quadratic equation, the coefficient of x squared is a, the coefficient of x is b, and this is c.
And remember, the sign to the left of the number is connected to it. So b is negative 4, not 4, and c is negative 1, not 1. Make sure you watch out for that.
That's it. So here's our ABCs. Simply, that's all we're working with here. So now we're going to substitute those into this over here. And this gives us the new problem. Negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a.
Now, don't try to do too many things at once. Just simplify this a little bit at a time.
And also use parentheses on every term you substitute into this formula.
Right, Jerry and I would recommend that any time you plug any number in for a variable, you always put parentheses where the letter is and then put the number inside the parentheses. Always good advice.
That's it. So this gives us, now what we're going to do first, I'm going to take care of that power and then this multiplication, but I'm not going to address per se the subtraction of these two. Okay, and I'm also going to take care of this here and this here. They're all separated by pluses and minuses, so I can do all four of those steps at one time. So that gives me the new problem. Double negative 4 is just 4, plus or minus the square root. Negative 4 squared is 16. Now you look here. This is minus 4, 9, and minus 1. You have two negatives out of the three numbers. Therefore, this is going to become positive, and this is the number one mistake in the quadratic formula. So this will become plus 36, and all of that is over 18. Now, moving across again, this gives us 4 plus or minus. I can only do what's in the parentheses now. That's 52 over 18.
Right, it's under the radical, so you can only combine the stuff under the radical. You can't combine the stuff outside the radical yet.
Now, many of you would stop here and say, that's my final answer.
Unfortunately, it's not.
It is not. You see the 52. The key is the 52 can be simplified by 4. So I kind of write off a little bubble here and say 52 is the same thing as 4 times 13, which is 2 square root of 13.
Again, this is the stuff that's in the Hot Topics for Chapter 6, if you didn't watch that Hot Topics.
Yeah, so now here's our new problem. 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 13 over 18. And again, you might think, I'm finished.
But you're not.
You're not. This is a binomial up here, and you can't cancel pieces. However, we can factor something out of that binomial, a 2, that will then cancel into 18. So if we come back down over here, taking a 2 out of those terms in the top, that leaves us with 2 plus or minus the square root of 13.
Because the 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times the square root of 13 is 2 to the square root of 13.
That's all over 18. And now our final step is to cancel 2 into 18 9 times.
And so those are our solutions. X is 2 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 9.
Yes.
Again, the individual pieces of this aren't so much hard. It's just a matter of making sure you do all the steps. So when you're using the quadratic formula, keep simplifying until you're absolutely certain you can't simplify any further.
That's it. Okay, let's look at one more of these. This problem, again, quadratic. Now, in the real world, just to let you know, you would normally look at these and see if you can factor them. We can tell you because we created these problems. They're not going to factor.
These aren't going to factor.
But if you were in another classroom, you would try to factor these first, because who wants to take up a whole sheet of paper with a quadratic formula?
Right, so factoring is usually the fastest way to solve a quadratic equation, but Jerry and I rigged these so that they couldn't be factored so that we could show you this process.
And we know Alex is doing the same thing.
Yes.
So, all right, in this problem, A is 6, B is -4, and C is 3. So now I'm making a direct substitution into the formula. That's -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, and that is all over 2a. Now, here, again, we can do this, 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 and this, and that gives us the following. 4 plus or minus the square root of 16. Now, you only see one negative out of those three. That minus counts as a negative, so this is still going to be subtraction. And we have 4 times 6, which is 24, and 24 times 3, Bill, is?
72.
72, thank you. Over 12. All right, now taking care of this underneath, that gives us, and we'll come on up here, 4 plus or minus the square root of, was that negative?
Negative 56, I think.
Negative 56, all over 12.
Now, depending on how much math you've had before, you've probably been told, oh, wait a minute, you can't have negative numbers under the square root sign. We can't take square roots of negative numbers. But remember, in this course, we're introducing what are called the complex numbers, where now we have a number that we call I, that is the square root of -1. And that's going to be the key to simplifying this particular radical.
That's it. Now, to make your life easy, whenever you see the square root of a negative, and of course the directions will state that imaginary solutions are possible, you could just pull that out and put an I in front, and you've accounted for the negative underneath the radical. The second part is, can I break down 56? And if I think about it, I believe 56 is equal to 4
times 14, I think.
4 times 14.
Yeah.
So that actually gives us 2 times the square root of 14. So we're going to substitute that in along with our i's. So our new problem is 4 plus or minus 2, then put the I, then the square root of 14, all over 12.
And again, you may think you're finished now, but you're not. You can still factor a 2 out of that top binomial.
That's it. So we are going to take the 2 out, and that's going to give us 2 plus or minus I, square root of 14, all over 12. And by the way, you can't factor out of a radical.
Right, because it's under the radical. You can't get in there to factor anything out.
That's it. And so your final step is to divide 2 into 12 6 times, which gives you this as your final answer. 2 plus or minus I, square root of 14, over 6. And don't get cancel happy on that term.
Right, you can't do it because they're connected by plus and minus signs. You can only cancel things being multiplied together. You can't cancel things being added and subtracted. All right, we hope we clarified the harder problems here for you, and we'll see you in a little while for the last hot topic.